Welcome to Malpractice Podcast.
So, are you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
I'm Jess.
I'm Sydney, and this is Malpractice Podcast.
It is. Welcome.
And we're your cruise directors on this. We're here to guide you through what I think is one of the most fascinating stories of all time.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. No. Okay. So,
Yeah.
A of all, just so everyone knows, Sydney and I are recording back-to-back seas.
True.
So that we can both enjoy our lives and go on small vacations and continue to put out content. So you're welcome.
Yeah, we're doing both. You really can have it all.
We're doing both. Yeah. So this week, Sydney's going to go to a fun little batchy batch.
I'm always at a bachelorette party.
Yeah. I know what you're wondering, listeners. Why are Sydney and Jess not going anywhere together? And it's because Sydney has other friends.
Which is rude.
And I don't.
It's rude of me, honestly.
I agree. But I'm going to go see my really good friend Sarah and my godchildren.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. I'm like day before the first day of school excited.
Oh, yay.
And I'm like stoked.
Because you're seeing her new baby for the first time.
Yes, Indy. I'm so excited to see them.
One of my coworkers just told me today that his wife is pregnant. And I'm like, everybody I know is having babies out here. Everybody out in these streets procreating.
Must be nice to just procreate for free. Anyway.
For free.
Speaking of, it's Pride Month.
It is Pride Month. What's up?
Happy to celebrate the existence and intersectionalities of identities in Pride Month. Thank you for existing, everyone. I was thinking about Pride Month today because Sydney knows I have like mixed feelings about Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, I'm married to a woman.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most times you run across like industries or businesses that are commodifying Pride Month, and it really messes with my head. But what I've chosen to do from now on is to take it as like a moment of reflection and like to celebrate the fact that I can exist in the way I do and like the aggressive way that I do, because it's a privilege. Sydney knows, like I like lead conversations and introductions with people and being like, oh, I have a wife, just so that they know that I'm gay so they can't fuck around.
Yeah, it's important. Put yourself out there right up front.
I put it all out there, but I have to say, I feel like I need to like show up constantly. But I was thinking about Pride Month and I was like, oh my God, it's Pride Month. Like I'm going to have these feelings, but I don't have those feelings this year because the last couple years has been so rough that I'm just like happy to celebrate things in general. And I just want to tell everyone in the queer community and our allies to like take a moment. What I'm doing this Pride Month is to like reflect on the fact that our existence is resistance.
Yeah.
And Pride Month, of course, there's a spotlight, so you're going to see a lot of gay shit.
Yeah.
But I want to remind people, like, you live your gay life every day. In the small moments, like, that's something, that's, like, prideful, too. So I just wanted, that's my thing for this Pride Month.
Jess never likes a branded occasion.
I don't.
You don't like to do things when everybody else is doing them. Am I wrong? Okay.
I don't. I have so many feelings. I don't appreciate people making money off of the ways in which people are different. No. I think that's weird.
Like, I agree with you.
Because I don't like people making money off of the reason that some people are kicked out of their homes. Like, it makes me feel really strange. But if I take that piece out of it and I think about where we've come, how far, and the fact that like being gay and doing anything is awesome, and we do that all the time. And like sometimes I kind of take for granted that I can say to anyone that I work with, like to whoever that I come in contact with, I can freely say that I have a wife and not be afraid. Like I feel like that's something to be proud of.
Well, yeah, not be afraid of being fired or physically harmed or shunned from society. Like those are all things that a generation ago did not happen.
And there are some places where it still happens, but
Right.
I have a privilege of being where I am now, and
Yeah.
you're gay every day. Like Pride Month, you can be like extra gay.
I love it.
Oh yeah, I have these gaudy rainbow earrings that I dust off for June, so then I'll be like extra. I'm already at a 10, so I'm just increasing to like a 20. Anyway, Pride Month is awesome. Celebrate.
I remember it being a thing when Campbell's Soup had a commercial that featured a gay couple like parenting a child together, like the kid was sick, and the two dads bring him a bowl of soup, and I remember seeing
deal.
things about it and stuff. And it sounds stupid, but at the time,
A big stand.
that was their way of being supportive and taking a stand in the way that they could. That was like fairly subtle, but I still remember people being like, well, now I'm boycotting Campbell's. So it was still a stance. And for so many people, that kind of thing is like, for a long time was so shocking or was so taboo or whatever. So to some extent, I respect and appreciate the like Pride Month promotion, because I also feel like it does help normalize.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's two dads and it's not a thing in this commercial.
Yeah, I have feelings about it, but I think if I reflect on why I'm doing that, it's because I don't want someone profiting off of celebrating something that a few years ago would have gotten you. And even today, like, you know, trans women, trans men are murdered for being trans. So, like, this isn't going away.
Right.
But I think, to your point, to create, like, a normalized society, especially for, like, young kids, you know, my niece, your godson, to see, like, my godchildren, to see reality is, like, so much more than what we thought it would be. Even, like, what we saw growing up. So, like, things, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just rambled for forever. Thank you for joining me here. But Pride Month is fine. I've accepted it. Celebrate yourself in all the little ways. And then also, if you can get a discount, do that too.
Correct. I think it's a good time to like celebrate progress, reflect on changes that need to be made moving forward.
Yeah.
It's like a good time for people who are not regularly conscious of it to do that, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
And happy Pride Month, and thank you for showing up exactly as you are.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
Yeah, you are perfect.
What else?
Unless you disagree with us, then you're trash.
Go ahead and click that pause and close that app, buddy.
Close it out.
Because it ain't going to get better from here.
10 out of 10 do recommend. Now we're getting into the cool story that Sydney wants to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it.
She's so excited. So last week we covered Raspy and his impact on the Romanov family, and we got through to his assassination. But we didn't want to stop there, essentially. And we were thinking about like what we wanted to do next. There's so much more in that whole like thread of the story that also is medical, scientific, cool. Mm-hmm. So we decided let's do a part 2 and continue on with the story so that people can kind of understand all of the ways in which basically this family was impacted by medical and science and crimey stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to last week's episode, like stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Get out. Go back.
Right.
Do the first one. Then come back here.
Who starts with part 2? Don't be weird.
Don't be weird.
Or be weird.
So today we're going to finish that story off, and I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Same. So we concluded last week's episode with Rasputin's assassination, but things are still wild in Russia. And while we're talking about Raspy, I want to take a quick pause and say one thing about his assassination. I read somewhere when we were prepping for the second part of this episode that during his assassination, the reason... So they fed him cyanide-laced cakes. The reason that may not have affected him is because if they put it in liquid form, it could have evaporated while it was baking.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because it apparently didn't show up in his like toxicology when they tested his body later. But what did show up is they shot him twice. The guy that shot him went upstairs to go party. Like, I'm not joking, left for a party. He came back. Rasputin, he thinks he's dead. He's like, let me just go check. Actually, he was getting a coat out of his room. He's like, let me get a coat.
Yeah.
and Rasputin was still alive and jumped up and started fighting him after being shot twice.
I don't know why they thought. Now, if you've seen our Instagram, you know what this man looks like. I don't know why you thought he was going to go down in any sort of way.
Also, he was 6'4". We didn't say that, but he was
6'4"?
Yeah. We didn't say that he was 6'4", but he was big as fuck.
No, ma'am.
So when he eventually died, or they thought he was dead, they wrapped him in a blanket. They threw him in a freezing lake. They had to drill a hole out to throw him in.
They did try. I said they tried to drown, and then they drowned him at the end.
Yeah. His cause of death was determined to be hypothermia from the freezing water. So he was still dead after being shot 4 times, fed cyanide, and thrown into a frozen lake.
I mean, he was alive.
Alive, yeah.
He was still alive.
And there's a rumor, who knows if this is true, that they chopped his wiener off and kept it forever and it's still around.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know either, but there's a French collector who says allegedly he has it. Okay.
Well, what a freak. Who wants that?
I mean, why? So many questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're back in Russia. Russia is fighting and losing in World War I.
But I also read that Raspy told them not to get involved in World War I.
He did.
He predicted it was a bad idea, and they did it anyway.
He also predicted his own death.
Yeah,
he said...
I think he's a freak, but...
So they killed him at the end of December. He had sent in a letter, I'm not going to make it until the 1st of next year. And they killed him 2 days before the 1st of the year.
I wonder if someone sent him a note that was you're not going to make it to the 1st of next year. Then he was I'm not going to make it to the 1st of next year.
Boom, I'm a fortune teller.
Yeah, that would be me trying to grasp my last little bit of pain.
Just on the very
pain,
end, yeah.
Not pain. I don't want to grasp pain ever.
What are you trying to say?
I don't know. It's been a long day. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. So they're losing World War I. The Tsarina has made lots of enemies by keeping Rasputin around for as long as she did. She's alienated a ton of the Imperial Russian court. And just as a reminder, she's keeping him around because she thinks that he is helping her only son, Alexei, the heir to the throne. And the Russian people have no idea that Alexei is even sick. He has hemophilia.
Yeah.
So she's portraying anxiety and social isolation, but it feels like that's just who she is because the people don't understand the circumstances. So she doesn't even get the sympathy of a worried mother whose only son is constantly about to die. So in Russia, you have crazy amounts of unrest in the country that are starting to kick off, political assassinations of powerful people, worker strikes, food shortages, complete halt of public transportation, mass uprisings. All of this is happening while they're in the middle of being engaged in a world war. So there's an announcement that because of the war, there's going to be another reduction in the food supplies for the normal people. So people start to freak out.
Right. So the war is making things continuously worse, which of course war does that.
Right.
For the Russian people who are eventually hit their breaking point in 1917. And I think they held off for a pretty good amount of time,
right.
To be honest.
Literally at this point, 1917, they're verbatim, fuck this shit. That's from a history book.
It would be if that was my class. That's exactly what I would have said and probably did say.
That's exactly what they said.
So by 1917, people have lost all their faith in the leadership ability of the Romanov family. The participation in World War I is a disaster. It's an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
Russian casualties were greater than those sustained by any nation in any previous war. 1.8 million soldiers and 1.5 million civilians died in Russia alone.
Yeah.
10 million soldiers desert their posts, which
mm-hmm.
people are starving. Things are not good. In what they call the February Revolution, which lasted for 8 days, which is almost as long as February. It's a short month. The capital city, just kidding, erupts in violent protests, armed clashes with police and military. Look at the police. Protesters are storming the Romanov Palace in St. Petersburg, which was called Petrograd.
Yeah.
At the time. I'm sure it's pronounced better or different, but that's how I'm saying it.
Sounds right.
So there are 90,000 people in the streets burning buildings, fighting with the police, havoc, and demanding socialist reform. All of this is going down less than 3 months after Raspi's murder.
Right.
So police and soldiers start out by fighting with protesters, but they eventually mutiny and join the revolutionaries on March 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So the royal family is basically out on their ass on their own.
Right.
And that's a huge disaster for the royals because eventually over 150,000 soldiers join the protesters as they're moving through things, and things are looking really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Even the moderates who had previously been like chill with the royal family and like chill with the protesters are now out in the streets calling for the overthrow of the czar.
Yeah. It's getting out of hand. Things are getting crazy. And I can't imagine if there are people in the streets, literally, they want your head on a stick. Like, no exaggeration.
Very French Revolution of them.
Very French Revolution.
Which I also love.
Oh my God. If there's a reason for us to cover the French Revolution, please let's do it.
We can cover the guillotine.
Oh, hell yeah. So seeing all of this shit go down, everyone who still likes the Tsar and the royal family is urging Alexandra to take her children and flee the country as fast as possible, but she's refusing to leave without her husband.
Dumb.
Right. I mean, at this point, it's like, okay, maybe I get that you love your husband and good for you, but also you're sacrificing your children, essentially.
Your children, right.
Whatever. When Nicholas gets word of that happening, remember, he's on the front lines, like between Germany and Russia.
Also, remember, he's not a soldier.
Right.
Remember, he didn't want the job. So he's on the front lines, probably panicking.
He's on the front lines, like, taking care of his beard. Like, everybody knows what he's doing there. He's not made to be on the front lines of a war. He's very not prepared for that. Okay.
I imagine him to be like that TikTok that's like, I'm just a baby.
I imagine the difference between, like, the revolutionaries and the royal family is, like, have you seen where they have a dog and the dog was, like, $50 and the dog is like, I can grow under any conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the royal family is like, I think I'm allergic to tap water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's him. That's his vibe.
Yeah.
So he finds out that his wife is refusing to leave. It takes him several days to get back from where he had been positioned on the front lines. And during that time, the family essentially misses their chances of escaping Russia to seek asylum with other royal relatives in a different country.
Just stupid.
So their window closes. The protesters at this point are storming the palaces. The family is able to escape the initial attack, but then the entire Romanov family is captured by revolutionaries, and Tsar Nicholas is forced to abdicate the throne on behalf of both him and his son Alexei. At this point, he does this because I think he believes it will protect him and his family.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I quit. Please just leave me alone. And they're like, yeah, sounds great. So that happened on March 15th. The Russian public effectively overthrew the monarchy in 7 days of protesting, which is crazy.
Love that, to be honest.
I mean, it was fast, right?
Like, you got what you wanted.
It was fast because so many people were pissed, and then immediately the military turns on them.
Yeah.
Shit's crazy. Like, no one is on their side, it feels like. So fast forward to November of the same year, 1917, the Bolshevik revolutionaries, which are led by Vladimir Lenin, take over the Russian government. And at this point, Nicholas starts reaching out to other countries where they might still have some allies. So he starts by asking the French and then the British to save him and his family because his wife was actually the granddaughter of Queen Victoria.
Oh, that's cool.
And she was said to be like her favorite granddaughter, but both of these countries are like, nah, dog. No one is trying to get involved with that clusterfuck. No, thank you.
They literally said, we are choosing to put our own oxygen mask over our nose and mouth before we assist you with yours.
That's exactly right. Because they thought that if the new Russian government finds out that they helped the monarchy,
of course,
then the Russian government would pull out of World War I, which was like the only thing keeping Germany busy on the other side.
Oh, okay.
Like, the only reason everybody else wasn't getting their shit rocked in World War I is because Russia was getting its shit rocked, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're just not willing to stick their necks out for Alexandra, who is German-born, because during the war, there's also a ton of anti-German sentiment,
right?
Which makes sense. So much so that the royal family in England changes their name from the German Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, which is their original name, to the thoroughly British Windsor. They literally changed their name.
So many names, so many families did that. Like Oswald is German,
Yeah,
but it's like Oswald or something.
right.
Ob's German at the beginning. Like so many people did that.
Yeah, my mom's side of the family, when they got through, well, they came into Galveston, but when they got through the port, they changed their name from Grunberg to Green.
Yeah, bingo, bingo, bango.
Because I'm guessing the customs agent was like, I don't know how to spell that. You look like a green to me.
That's exactly what they would do.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'd be like, your first name's John. You have a hard last name. Where are you from? Oh okay. Farmland. John Farmland. Like, they literally say the stupidest shit. Anyway.
The origin of last names. Love that.
Yeah. So, March 1st, 1918, the Bolsheviks seized power and are holding the royal family hostage. So, at this point, they've moved them into a house called the House of Special Purpose, which, what a name.
What a name.
In a place I can't pronounce.
I've heard this called Yekaterinburg.
Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like now that you say it out loud.
Yeah.
And life on the run as prisoners is very different, from the royal family life that they're used to.
Yeah.
So they're being like shuffled from house to house in the dead of night. They aren't allowed to have sheets or like use silverware. They have to ring a bell when they need to use the restroom.
Right. What I heard is that the guards are literally making fun of the family. Like, they're in their face going, no, you don't get to live like royalty anymore.
Well, I mean,
which is like, you're kind of being a dick.
They were kind of dickish to everyone.
I get the vibe.
Listen to part 1 if you haven't listened.
Right. They're in a very eat the rich headspace. Like, I get what they're up to.
Yeah. And like, it's understandable for the little back talky stuff.
I get it, yeah.
You have a hard life now, like the rest of us have a potato.
Oh,
instead
true.
of, a cake.
Instead of a cake. No cake for you.
So they're kept in like really strict isolation. Guards are watching their every move. The windows in the family's rooms are sealed shut and covered with newspapers. They're forbidden from looking outside or talking to each other in any language but Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So they're being like monitored around the clock. And there's like 300 guards. Obviously, they hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Things probably don't feel like they're going great because they're not. But they had no idea what was coming next. And historians found Alexandra's diary, and she was writing hopeful passages about maybe going back to their normal life. Which, bitch, this is why people hate your ass. Like, you are not going back to your normal life. Like, it's just simply it's not going to occur.
It feels like maybe she was a little bit delusional.
A little bit.
Just like a scooch. Like a little scooch.
They, like, stormed your castle and like kicked all your statues down. Like, you were never going back to your normal life.
Right. Things are not going well.
Welcome to the new normal.
Right.
So the end for them is actually closer than they know. What the family doesn't know is that the White Guard, a military unit that is loyal to the Romanovs, is moving towards their location and threatening to rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
So the new Russian government is terrified that if a pro-monarchist group gets a hold of the royal family, they'll try and restore Nicholas to the throne. So they decide, you know what? It's too much of a risk. We have to get rid of the family.
Like ASAP. Get them out of here. They did not want to risk in any way the possibility that the Romanovs would get back into power. So, what comes next is really sad and a little bit gory. If you are not comfortable with that, you're going to want to skip forward like 30 seconds, maybe twice.
A minute. Let's do it a minute. Yeah.
So, in the early hours of July 17th, 1918, the royal family is woken up at around 2 o'clock in the morning. They're told to get dressed because their guards say they're being moved to a safer location. They're then moved into the small basement room of the house. I saw that it was like 20 by 16 feet. And they're asked to wait there for just a moment. They're like, we'll be right back. Just chill here for a second. And Nicholas is like, hey, can my wife and my sick son have chairs to sit down? So they both sit down. So at this point, Nicholas is 50, Alexandra is 46, Alexei is 13, Anastasia is 17, Maria is 19, Tatiana is 21, and Olga is 22. Their personal physician is there. And then they have 3 servants there who voluntarily stayed with the family. And they're basically down in this tiny room, not knowing what to do, not knowing what's going on. But what they don't know is that a firing squad has been assembled in the next room. A few minutes later, an execution squad of secret police was brought in, and the commander of this group read aloud, Nikolai Alexandrovich, in view of the fact that your relatives are continuing their attack on Soviet Russia, the Ural Executive Committee has decided to execute you. Now, when they come in and read this statement, Nicholas is turned around, like facing his family, making sure everybody's okay. So the guy comes in, he reads this, and he turns around. And as soon as he turns around, the firing squad raises their guns and starts shooting at random. What's really sad is that the royal family had each sewn several pounds of precious gemstones, jewelry, stacks of money into their garments. So the rumor says that the bullets are literally ricocheting off of their bodies as they're hitting them, which is, I don't know why, but it's somehow even more horrifying just because it like prolongs the whole thing.
Yeah.
Nicholas was the first to be shot and killed with 3 bullets to the chest. Alexandra was next, and then each of the children and their maids. Everyone but the 2 parents survived the first round of shots. And apparently during this time, over 70 bullets were fired because of how random and chaotic the assassination attempt had been. But all the shooting did was stir up dust and make a huge amount of noise, so the execution squad couldn't hear their officers' commands. So then one soldier is like, this sounds really loud, and they're in the middle of a very public space. Like, there are houses all around them. So the soldiers go upstairs to see if you can hear the shooting from the street. Of course you can. When he realizes that, he comes back down and tells the commander, and the commander tells them, make sure all the victims are dead, but don't shoot anymore because everyone can hear it. So he ordered them to use the butts of their guns and bayonets to finish off the rest of the family, which is truly just the absolute worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
The execution also lasted for about 20 minutes because everyone on the firing squad was very nervous and reportedly like very, very drunk. So the entire thing was essentially completely botched.
Yeah.
Like, the people they picked to be on the firing squad were not, like, the cream of the crop. It's just, like, who happened to be standing around. Here's a gun, go do it.
Yeah. So then these geniuses loaded up the bodies into the back of a truck to be buried in a hidden location. So the guard who was in charge of preparing for this part was apparently like maybe even the most drunk,
Right.
and only grabbed one single shovel. So they had originally planned to drop the bodies of the royal family into an abandoned mine shaft, but when they tried to get the truck to the site, it got stuck in the mud. And so the soldiers are like drunk, and now they're like losing interest and starting to disobey orders.
They're basically over it, yeah.
Right. Well, they're probably like at this point, what is it, hungover? They've
Oh,
been
absolutely.
doing this stuff for a long time. So the commander has them stop where they are and dig a grave for the family. And they dug a hole in the middle of the road that was only like 2 feet deep. And they dropped the bodies in, covering them with sulfuric acid and quicklime to prevent having them to be like identified.
Yeah.
And this is all finished 2 days after the initial execution attempt. So it's like a real mess.
Yeah. When we were writing this part and taking notes to like prepare this, there were other details that I left out because I physically got woozy when I was reading some of the things that they did. Like, it's bad. You can go read it if you are interested in those details, but it's rough.
Yeah, I'm not going to read that. In an attempt to confuse anyone who found the graves and to keep their bodies from being identified, Alexei and Anastasia's bodies were moved to another location and burned, which is like, okay. Then they, oh God, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
They essentially like annihilated the bodies and buried them 50 feet away from the rest of the family after they had burned them. This actually really worked to confuse people because the bodies weren't officially recognized until 2015. So it was probably the one smart thing they did their entire lives, even though they did it and they're shitty.
Yeah, they are very shitty. I understand the purpose of the revolution, and I think this is how a lot of Russian people felt at the time, because after they find out what happens, which is a really long time, the Russian people are not like, oh, good for you, you did a good job. They're like, it feels extreme.
Yeah, it's a little much. And by a little, I mean a lot. You did the most.
Right.
It's gross.
It's gross. It absolutely is. And they're like taking possessions off of the Romanov family, the soldiers are. As you can imagine, it's not like they handled this with decorum. Like they shot them and then they stripped their bodies. They took everything they could find. They auctioned off like belt buckles and buttons and stuff like that. They bragged publicly about having been the one to like kill which of the family members. It was horrifying. Like they did not handle this in a cute way.
No, they're garbage.
Garbage. So originally and totally justifiably, the Bolsheviks were afraid that if they released a statement saying that they had murdered the entire royal family, because remember, this includes children.
Yeah, people are going to come for your life.
Right. They were afraid that public opinion would turn against them. Totally fair. So they announced publicly that they've assassinated, they called him Nicholas the Bloody.
Which, LOL.
Right. I mean, more like Nicholas won't get his hands dirty.
Yeah, literally.
But they say that the rest of the family has been moved to a safe location where they're being held. We're going to keep them safe. Don't worry, you guys, which is trash.
A lie. Yeah.
Over the next few months, 27 more friends and relatives, that includes 14 Romanovs and 13 members of the imperial entourage and household, are murdered because, once again, they're like cleaning house. They want to leave no one who can possibly inherit the throne and restart the monarchy. The details of the execution and the location of their final resting place remained a Soviet secret for more than 60 years.
Top secret.
Top secret, state secret. Is that what I said last time?
Yeah. I liked it.
For 60 full years, no one knows what's happening with the family. When the secret finally got out, the war was over, and people had essentially surmised before the information got out, when the war ended and the Romanovs didn't reappear, people had essentially surmised then that they had probably been murdered by the Bolsheviks.
100%, yeah.
But for the next few decades, people were very intrigued by the mystery of what had happened to them, and several people actually came forward claiming to be missing members of the Romanovs.
So, I don't know how anybody else feels, but I love Anastasia the movie.
Same.
It's not a Disney movie. It's like a cartoon. So one of the best animated movies I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
It's great.
The shit is a straight up bop.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. So there's this fake Anastasia movie, but there's a real story here about a fake Anastasia. 1, 2, 3, maybe more.
Yeah.
So there's lots of them. So 10 years after the Romanov dynasty falls, there's this legend that started to circulate of a family member who may have survived the Grand Duchess Anastasia. The Dowager Empress offered 10 million rubles for the safe return, and this sparks like many people raising their hands immediately, like, pick me. I can be her.
Same.
Change my name. Never heard of who I was before.
Absolutely, I'm ready.
Plus, people who supported the family didn't want to believe that entire family was like truly gone. So the public kind of clung to the story in general, and it was just kind of like perpetuated.
And I don't blame them because, number one, there's something so interesting about this story. And number two, it's like you want to be hopeful, but also you want the story to keep going because it's very fascinating.
So Anna Anderson is one of those people, and I don't even know if she meant to or didn't mean to, like, lie, but we'll get into it. So she was a young woman, and in 1920, she was brought in for attempting to jump off a bridge, essentially. And by attempting, I do believe she actually jumped off. And
oh, did she?
She was rescued in the water by, like, police officers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I believe so. I saw 2 conflicting documents about it. One said she's attempting, and one said she was rescued in the water, which means that she completed jumping off the bridge. But anyway,
could be either.
She was trying to jump off a bridge. Either way, 6 1/2, she was admitted into the Daldorf Asylum. She refused to identify herself or couldn't. So she stayed there for 2 years. She had these weird scars on her body, and she spoke German with an accent that the medical staff described as Russian. They also said she had given birth before. Another patient believed so strongly that she was in fact part of the royal family that when that patient was released, she went herself to the Russian expatriates to see this young woman and bring her back.
Yeah.
Tell them, you have to come see this woman. I'm sure she's Tatiana.
Okay. That's so interesting. Also, this is a weird caveat, but I have to bring it up. if that person who was super convinced was also in a mental asylum.
I mean, she was released.
Fair enough. Okay.
She goes and she's like, come and see this. This is Tatiana.
Well, I mean, also, if you look at the pictures, she looks a
She does look
lot like the
similar.
royal
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So a former lady-in-waiting was there, and she said, girl, number one, you are too short to be Tatiana. To which Anna replies, I never said I was. And everyone freaked out because, number one, she had spoken, I think for the first time in 2 years, right?
Besides being like, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
like the only thing she had said.
Yeah. So they put a list in front of her with all the possibilities written out, and she crossed off each one except for Anastasia. So she started calling herself Anna Tchaikovsk, the last name of the guy who rescued her. She starts telling the people that she had jewels sewn into her corsets, which all of the girls did when they were being executed, and then that the guards tried to kill them with bayonets, which was also part of the story. She said she had played dead and that the soldiers that came to take her away took pity on her, and bam. Okay, the soldier finds her, takes pity on her, she goes with him, and apparently they had a son together, is what she's saying. And then she comes back to find her family. Supporters also at this point began helping her try to win legal recognition as the lost Romanov princess, because if she got that, she would be essentially the sole heir to the Romanov fortune, which is crazy.
Yeah. So that's her story. So, okay, girl, do you. Because there was some evidence too, like Anna and Anastasia both spoke French, English, and German.
Yeah.
She said she could understand Russian but wouldn't speak it because it was the language of her family's murderers, which that's a good lie.
Honestly, fair.
Some investigators were like, you are lying because of that. But the two, Anna and Anastasia, also shared a foot deformity.
Mm-hmm.
And she also knew a shit ton of like insider things about the family. And they got like a handwriting expert to decode her and Anastasia's writing. And they said, the expert said, like, bitch, this is the same.
Right.
So that maybe not enough to be like 100% sure, but enough to like make people say, maybe she is.
It sounds pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
And remember, this is like, these are the 1920s. Yeah, I don't know what DNA is. Sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How can you tell? I don't know. With the scars that she had on her body that kind of correlated with her story. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So the Grand Duke of Hesse, Alexandra's brother and Anastasia's uncle, was a major critic of this woman the entire time. He hires a private investigator to determine Anna's true identity. Their investigator announces that she's in fact Franziska Shanskowska. I don't know which one of those is right.
I don't know why you're looking at me. I would have just been like, this woman, Franny. Yeah.
So Franny was a Polish-German factory worker who had disappeared in 1920. Franny had a history of mental instability, and they knew for a fact that she had been injured in a factory explosion in 1916, which may have accounted for the scars. These findings were published in German newspapers, but they were never proven definitively until way, way, way later. In an effort to prove that she was or was not Anastasia, they had one of the longest trials in German history to try and determine if she was the real deal, and eventually the German Supreme Court ended the case with a ruling of no one.
I didn't know that courts could be like, and
Question
I don't
mark.
know.
Yeah.
Neither of you. Yeah.
No one knows. That's basically what they said at the very end.
That's what they said. They said, not enough either way. Please get out of my courtroom.
Right. So she ends up coming to the U.S. She ends up living like a celebrity for a little while. And then she marries a professor, settles down, has a kid.
Yeah, a second kid.
Lives her life, basically.
Right.
Several other people claimed to be other Romanov family members over the years. Because remember, there's like 6 full decades where no one knows what happened to this family.
Which is crazy.
And Anna wasn't definitely proven wrong until the late 1990s when her DNA was compared with a living relative of the Romanovs, which proved once and for all that she was not Anastasia.
#science.
They also found this Fran Shanskowska's relative. like a different relative, like her brother's children or something like that, and tested it, and it was her.
Oh, it was Fran.
She was the Polish factory worker.
I just don't think that I think she had enough like mental issues that she didn't know who she was. Like, I truly believe that.
I think it's entirely possible that doctors or people there were like, you look kind of like Anastasia. And she was like, maybe I am. I don't know.
Shit, I jumped off a bridge. I don't know.
Right. Clearly not in the headspace to like make major life decisions right now.
Right.
Please.
Same. So, science time. The remains of Nicholas, Alexandra, and 3 of their daughters, Anastasia, Olga, and Tatiana, along with their loyal servants and family physician, were found in 1979 by Dr. Alexander, coincidence? Avdonin.
Yeah.
Donin? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So he was an amateur sleuth and a retired geologist. Why was he hunting for bodies? But anyway. Yeah, so he does all this covert information gathering, including talking to the children of the people who bragged about being on the execution squad. So he's basically like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, he's like a gumshoe detective.
Yeah. So then he and a friend could narrow down finally the location of the royal family's grave. So they start digging and almost immediately find 3 skulls. So they're pretty sure they got it, but they found the bodies in 1979, which was also basically the height of the Soviet Russia. So even though they found 3 of the skulls, they are both too afraid to talk about it for 10 years. Like, I would be scared too, to be honest.
Yeah.
So they rebury the bones and move on with their lives, which is like insane.
I would have been scared too, but what I could not do is shut up about something for 10 full years.
Oh, period.
I would have called you that same day and been like, bitch,
That
guess
same
what?
moment. I'm telling one person, guaranteed it's you.
I would have been live tweeting from the dig site.
Then delete them and they would have like the data and this. Yeah, no, it'd be bad.
Yeah, they would. So they don't talk about it for 10 years. And then in July of 1991, right before the Soviet Union is permanently dissolved, the government officially decides to reopen the grave.
Finally.
So good for them. Boris Yeltsin puts this commission together. They decide to reopen the grave. But the problem is that they go in with bulldozers.
Why?
I can't say for sure. Part of me wonders if they did it on purpose to try and hide some forensic evidence of something like, oh, sorry, we're so clumsy over here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe if there was some state secret that they didn't want them to find, they're like, ooh, sorry, we're so clumsy. Look at us with our bulldozers, right?
Maybe.
Because if you've ever seen a forensic excavation, that is not how they do it. They do it with, like, hand tools and
oh, yeah,
ground penetrating radar and shit. Like, they don't do it with bulldozers. They had experts, people who, like, do this for a living, like, dig shit up for a living, were on site when they did it. And they said they were just standing there horrified while they dug with a bulldozer. And they're like pulling up chips of bone with the bulldozer. Like they wrecked it.
God. Morons.
So the Russian government uncovers 9 bodies. And they're like, well, this can't be the Romanovs because there's supposed to be 11 bodies. Because you can't split people into 2 separate groups, right?
Idiots.
Foolish. So then it wasn't until 1994 when they start doing DNA analysis on the remains in order to determine their origin, and this story is crazy. So,
science time.
This is science time crazy story. When Nicholas was young, he had traveled the world, including a stop in Japan, and while he was there, a would-be assassin attacked him with a sword, struck him twice above the right ear with the sword, which that in and of itself, surviving a sword blow to the head is nuts. But then the attacker is subdued and taken away, whatever. Somebody takes a handkerchief, uses it to stop the bleeding. They take that handkerchief, they preserve it. Eventually, they put it in a Japanese museum. So in 1994, when they start doing this DNA analysis, they're like, where can we get a piece of his physical makeup, like his genetic makeup? So they get this handkerchief from this Japanese museum to try and get a DNA match. It was unsuccessful at first, and then this other Japanese scientist retested it, and he's like, I actually did get a profile, and it doesn't match those bodies.
Doesn't match
What
them.
he said was, the DNA profile from the handkerchief did not match the DNA profile from the bones.
And do they have chain of custody of that handkerchief?
No, and that's the problem.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's lots of problems.
Oh, yeah. Several problems here.
But this, on top of the fact that there were only 9 bodies, led lots of people who are unreasonable, in my opinion, to doubt whether those bodies are really the Romanovs.
Right. And the Russian government is one of those groups because they were like, the findings are not conclusive. Goodbye.
Essentially.
Then they start using DNA testing to try and conclude, if not who they are, the relationships of who those people were. So, like, what kind of situation we got here? Are they friends? Are they related? What's the situation?
Yeah.
They're able to determine there is a mother and father and 3 daughters in the grave. Feels like we're finally getting somewhere.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I would be like, okay, well, it might not be conclusive, but hello, good morning.
It's a strong coincidence.
Right. To prove the identity of Alexandra and her children, the scientists took blood from Prince Philip, the consort of Queen Elizabeth II, and the grandnephew of Alexandra. So, because they all share a common maternal ancestor, they would all share mitochondria, DNA.
Mitochondrial DNA.
Science words, which is passed almost unchanged from mother to child. The comparison between that DNA in Philip's blood and the remains was positive, proving them to be the Romanovs.
Like, conclusively, if the mitochondrial DNA matches, it's the Romanovs.
That is them.
And at this point, when they get this testing done, the Russian Orthodox Church especially are like big doubters of this whole situation. And so they're like, well, the sample could have been contaminated. And the person who released this paper was like, yeah, okay, does Prince Philip have a relative who happens to work in this DNA lab? Because if he doesn't have a relative who works directly in the lab, then there's no way it could have been contaminated to match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The science, they said science is law here, ma'am.
Right. And the church said, not here, not in
not
this
here.
house. In 2008, 2 different Russian laboratories perform DNA testing on the shirt that Nicholas wore during the attack because they found it, which is crazy. A full profile of his DNA is worked up, and they match the profile to the profile that they developed from the skeletal remains of his brother Georgy, who had been exhumed to test whether the bones belonged to the Tsar. So they take his brother out of the grave.
Oh, wow.
They work up a DNA profile for his brother. They take blood off of the shirt, and they're like, okay, so we can all agree that this shirt found at the site matches his brother, right?
So that's him.
So it wasn't until 2020, shortly after having 36 forensic tests performed on the bones, that the Russian government announced officially that they were the Romanov family, and the Russian Orthodox Church finally buries the remains, like gives them the official Orthodox royal burial. They identify them formally as the royal family, and they actually canonize the entire family as saints.
Finally. I hope they're all getting haunted to this day.
The church?
100%.
Oh, you know that church is haunted. If anywhere is haunted, it's a church.
No, I hope that those people who denied them are being haunted.
Oh, that's fine. I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
Everyone get a little haunted.
No. Not me, but those people.
Oh, I don't want to be
being
haunted for sure.
You want to be?
No, I don't want to be haunted. Do you believe in ghosts?
Fuck yes. Knock on all the wood.
First of all, if I got haunted, I would move out of this house. I would sell it immediately. Immediately, no. No, thank you. No ghosts, please.
No, please. Get out, please.
If I hear a noise in my house, I'm like, I'm going to burn it down. I have to.
No, we're on the same page here.
Okay, perfect. So then in July 2007, on the opposite side, so that's what happened to the rest of the family. But remember, Alexei and Anastasia still haven't been identified. Well, it's either Alexei and Anastasia or Alexei and Maria. No one can figure out, for some reason, they're having a lot of trouble determining. One of the 3 sisters was either Anastasia or Maria. They don't know which one was separated. The rumor had been that it was Anastasia, which is why all of these pretenders came forward to be Anastasia. But officially, I think it was Maria that was actually separated with Alexei and taken somewhere else.
Interesting.
So this amateur historian is actually a builder professionally. He's wandering around the woods, digging with a group of people who like regularly looked for the rest of the family.
Weird, but fine.
I mean, yeah, however you want to spend your free time, good on you. He and this group of people discover 40 bone fragments in a wooded area near Yekaterinburg that they determined belonged to a boy and a young woman. Immediately, people are like, okay, there's Alexei and Anastasia or the missing sister. This has to be them. So in April of 2008, DNA tests are performed by an American laboratory, and those proved that the bones exhumed in the Ural Mountains belonged to 2 children of Nicholas II, Alexei, and a daughter, although they have never been officially recognized as members of the Romanov family until January of this year, 2022, when DNA collected from those bones was tested for the presence of the hemophilia gene that had caused Alexei so many issues during his life. That came back positive. So the other body was likely the daughter Maria, because Anastasia was actually a carrier of that gene while Maria was not. And that those bones were found to not have the hemophilia gene allele that they were looking for. So it had to be Maria instead of Anastasia. That's how they figured that out. So finally, the bones of the last 2 Romanovs to be identified have still not been given the royal burial by the Russian Orthodox Church, who still doubt their identity, which is crazy.
Which makes sense because the church doesn't believe in science.
I will say they have finally been buried, and for a long time they were like sitting in a box on a shelf, which is a tragedy.
That's so gross.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
No matter who those bones belong to, don't put them on a shelf in your office, you weirdo. Okay.
Well, that's what we know about that.
I loved it. I could read about this for the rest of my life and never get tired of it. I love this story. We hope you did too.
Send us DMs if you have a topic you want us to cover. Rate and review us on wherever you listen to your podcast. I just realized that we are actually also on audiobooks.
We are?
I think it's cool.
Yeah. So wherever you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this right now, go rate us, review us, subscribe. We appreciate it in advance. We love the feedback, and we love your face. Thank you for being here.
Happy Pride Month.
And don't forget, malpractice makes perfect.
Makes perfect. Bye.
Bye.